Happy Sunday. Welcome back to Retake the Week. It's been another busy one. I'm not so sure on the Counter-Strike side, just one event really to report from, and it started quite early in the day, so I think all of us had our evenings free to do as we wish. I'm sure all of us had a lot of fun with that. But let's get straight into it. So, this show is of course brought to you by members. Without members, we'd still be doing it, but it'd be far less fun and also just not as worth our time. So, they've kept us honest. We're approaching a full calendar year of Retake the Week. It's been amazing. We just had that discussion when we were doing behind the scenes. As I look at the thumbnail for that, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of behind the scenes episode. And we realize, yes, our anniversary is coming up. So love you long time. Gonna be a cute little episode when we have our anniversary. But yeah, the members get access to a bunch of special content. They get access to interviews with members of the scene. They get access to the behind the scenes segments of Retake the Week and prospect demos and the right to vote. It's quite the litany of rewards if you become a member. So we always appreciate it. So please, if you have the money to spare and you want to support the show, that's where to go. But all right, Quacke, anything to promote? Anything to talk about?
Yes, I'm unemployed in esports anyway. Yeah, things as you may have seen, actually, as a lot of people seen, I got a fuck ton of engagement on my sad goodbye tweet. I Dust2 Sweden has shut down, and we're gonna segue into that. But yeah, I would just like to note, I was out drinking yesterday. I did not try to postpone the episode. I stood fast and I said we'd record at 11, and actually you were late. I was here
Yeah, to be
waiting
fair, yeah,
patiently.
I got distracted watching the Counter Strike because map one was ongoing, and then I was like, I need to hop in the shower. I need to get prepped for the show. So I was like, I sent you a message saying, yeah, I'm hopping in the shower, and you didn't seem too against the idea of having a little more time to wake up, but it's all good. We are here to record the show, not delayed this time. No hangovers to deal with. Uh,
Yep.
just a good Counter Strike chat on a Sunday morning. We will be following G2 versus Spirit in the background, by the way. So if you hear weird monkey noises from Quacke, it's probably because something happened in the Counter Strike. I'll just have the score bot going, so I won't know if it was particularly hype. I have too much running on my PC to also have a live stream up. So let's get into our first segment, and it is just discussing Quacke's unfortunate situation, but also the unfortunate situation of certain Dust2 individuals. Or is it, how much of Dust2 is actually gone? Let's talk about this. Dust2 Sweden is shut down. What's
Yep.
happened? Is there any other effects that we don't know about in that headline?
Yes. So there's been a lot of, so the background of this is that a lot of people might not know that a few years ago, HLTV and Dust2 were acquired by a Danish media company called Better Collective. They own a lot of different media coverage websites, both in sports media. A lot of it is esports. I think they're like the FIFA equivalent of HLTV. It's called Footbin. That's also them. Swedish people might know about Svenska Fans. That's another one of their brands. Hockey Sverige, I think, is another one. And also, what's it called? Yard Barker. That's one that I had heard of, which they own. Even I recognize that one. Yeah, a bunch of brands.
What does
They
Yard Barker cover? Sorry, I just need to know.
No idea. I think just sports, but I just recognize the brands. I
Okay.
think they just cover general sports stuff with yards. And like American
Okay.
football has yards, right? That's
It does
yards is an
have
important
yards,
metric.
yes. As a measurement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they might be barking about yards. Yeah,
Mm,
or
okay.
or cricket. I don't fucking know. But
No,
when
cricket's
I
not
saw,
yards.
I saw it. Is it not? Ah, right. I don't know anything about cricket.
Don't worry. Yeah.
Um, they own a fuck ton of these brands, and HLTV is just one of them. We are, I say we. We were mostly independent of BC. It's rare that they had like a big something that affected us. It's basically you know, they get a budget to work with and then they make stuff happen. They do account for a significant amount of the company, I think. Like they really pride themselves on like the HLTV award show, but it's not like we are the bread and butter of Better Collective, or were. So basically, what happened is Better Collective has had a really bad year. And I got a message a couple of weeks ago from one of my colleagues who said when they reported their earnings for the third quarter, the stock price overnight dropped by 40%. because they were significantly under projections.
Mm.
And they basically like they took a big hit. And for the past few weeks, it's basically been coming that there were some cuts that need to happen. There were some layoffs, large scale layoffs within Better Collective. I don't. Um, it's in the hundreds of staff worldwide who are being laid off. Uh, I I can't remember the exact number. But yeah, it's a large amount of people worldwide who are being laid off. There's like offices in some places of the world are entirely closing. Some websites are entirely shutting down. Um, it's been tough. Basically, what has happened to HLTV and Dust2 is that, as far as I know, HLTV and then the Danish, Brazilian, and Indian Dust2 are all mostly unaffected. They might have some issues with like budgeting trips or something like that. That might be, but I think they've managed to like steer it in a way where they can be mostly unaffected. And the hit of it all came towards Dust2 Sweden and Dust2 US for honestly good reasons. Like, the reason is that in Dust2 Sweden's case, for example, we were a very long-term investment. The idea of Dust2 Sweden was basically that we weren't going to be profitable for 5 years. And basically yesterday is or 2 days ago was the 1 year anniversary of founding Dust2 Sweden. So we were not too far along that timeline. We were some ways out from being outright profitable. We would have been, as far as I've been told and as far as I know, the projections were looking really good. Like we were hitting all of our targets, we were doing really good, but it was always going to be a long-term investment where we go negative, steadily grow it up, like back up, and um, end it. Finally we end up in a good position.
Mm.
What changed is that now Better Collective just doesn't have time to wait for that upswing again. So which is a very good reason. I mean, look, they they fucked up. Like they fucked up their own economics. They've acquired a lot of different companies. Um, and I saw some people who know way more about economics than I do say that like that was the issue. They like basically expanded by just acquiring website after website after website. Um, and that was a problem. Does the US also got hit? I think for similar reasons, like regionally. As far as I understand, they also didn't necessarily do anything wrong. It's just that North American websites in Better Collective were not particularly successful, so they kind of fell under that umbrella, and that's why they had to take cuts. Like they were just saying, we're going to lay off some staff in North America, and then just picked a few. They are affected in the sense that Ryan heartbreakingly lost his job, which is honestly like a lot of you probably can't read it because he after the whole like Twitter block thing happened, he put his account on private. But a lot of you probably can't read those tweets, but it's really heartbreaking for him because I just as a small side tangent, he left a finance job, like a career in finance, 2 years ago to go back into esports to like give his absolute everything in Dust2. Like he has worked late nights, early mornings, weekends, overseas trips, um, and that's like been a big strain on his life. Like this guy has a wife, I think they are married, but a partner, like they have a house together. Like he's like, very far along in his life. He's sacrificed a lot for this. And it's not for nothing. Like that investment has still been very much, at the time it was very valuable. But at this point, Dust2 US is so gutted that everything he did to like grow the brand for the future is gone. Like there's very little future for Dust2 US left. And that's fucking heartbreaking if for Ryan, honestly. Also, all of the other full-time staff who were freelancers, I think they were also laid off. There are for the foreseeable future, there's going to be no more full-time staff at Dust2 US. All of the writers are going to be part-time. I don't know who's even left. As far as I've seen, everybody I know from Dust2 US has left. So that's been Eminem's Jeff, Scoobster, Gonsoak, um, and what is his name? Scott. Um, I haven't seen anyone else write besides those four and Ryan, and I haven't seen anyone stay on. Like I think everybody posted they're leaving. So I don't know what's gonna happen to Dust2 US. But yeah, so they were hit. My editor in chief got laid off, and since he was basically the only guy working full time at this, that also means the site gets shut down. It's an obvious it's an obvious cost cutting, like red number in the spreadsheet. It makes sense to cut it when you're in this dire straits. So yeah, that's what's going on. As far as I know, HLTV and the other Dust2 sites are not affected because they are profitable. Like it's a green number in the spreadsheets. They've been around long enough, or they were small enough investments. Like Dust2 India is quite new, but I think it was a small enough investment that it's it wasn't hard to reach the break even point and then
Sure.
all of that. So yeah, it's as far as I know. But yeah, now so yeah, we are out, and we didn't know about that. Like full credit to. I saw a lot of people like your initial gut reaction was like, it's a hard time to work in esports. And I mean, I think you're right, but this was not at all symptomatic of having a hard time in esports because the other brands are very profitable. They did everything they could to try to stop this. Like basically, the staff at Dust2 and HLTV, they fought for weeks to like try to make this not happen. But Better Collective were in such dire straits that they were like, sorry, we just can't motivate this. We just don't have time. Um, we were doing fine. We were doing great. We were doing a great job. It was really paying off, especially in the long term. It was going to pay off really well. And we just, esports are rough right now. It is a rough time, but this is not exactly symptomatic of this. So if you're gonna, there might be some people out there who are like, angled the way where they feel like they're outraged and they want to scream at someone for this. Don't take it out on HLTV whatsoever. They have been absolutely wonderful. I have nothing but good things to say about every single person I've worked with there, and they did absolutely everything they could. They've also been very gracious with those of us who are leaving. I think some of the Dust2 US staff is staying on until the end of the year, so like they it's not just like pull the plug and then go. But yeah, and yeah, it was very sudden for all of us. Basically on Monday, my boss was asking, when can you work this week? And I said like I can work on Tuesday. And then on Tuesday I was like, am I working today? And he was like, no, you don't have to. We're shutting down. So very much came overnight for all of us. But yeah, it is it's a rough time for Better Collective if nothing else. So, but esports is still esports. Like we were doing pretty good. But yeah, anyway, the bottom line is I no longer have a side gig, which pays me money. So anybody here, anybody listening who works in esports, absolutely anybody, if you have a position open for like a paying part-time gig, I am your guy. I can do absolutely anything. I will probably shill pretty much anybody as well. Like if Lockheed Martin want to make a CS:GO team, I'm your guy. Like I would do that absolutely. This is an old gag. We were talking about this guy a couple of weeks ago. I just figured I could
Yeah.
recycle it now that I'm actually in need of money. So yeah, we that's the bottom line of what I have to say here.
Yeah.
The same goes for my colleagues. Like if you have the chance in Sweden to like, if you need a hardworking guys who like can do a good job in a variety of different roles, um, Lars, Siglor, they're also very good, and I think you should absolutely look at them. And I mean, look, Hallon Kram is like one of the best in the world at what he's doing. I'm gonna be honest. He's great, but he's also on garden leave, so maybe not hire him right now. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah, all right. Well, it is a rough time for the people affected, like massively. And I
yeah,
think a lot of people who relied on those websites, especially, I think for local coverage of little regional events, small teams coming up. But yeah, as you said, if Lockheed Martin want a CS:GO team that needs or CS2 team that needs coverage, Quack is your guy. I'll be Team Raytheon if you want, guys, and we'll have it out, on on the show.
yeah,
Yeah, the battle of the mustachioed industrial military complex, bro. One
yeah,
hell of a battle will be fought. But yeah, it is a shame. When you told me that things were going to start happening, I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I kind of just assumed as long as people look, you may be right that it's not symptomatic of the greater problems in the finances for esports. I mean, Better Collective do stretch far beyond, but they are also online content. Digital content still has the same problem as had for years. And that's no
yeah,
one's paying for it. No one's paying for it, so everything has to be investments and banner ads. And there's only so far you can go. But yeah, but now, I mean, look, the Counter-Strike scene is slowly aging into, adulthood. Not that forums would indicate as such. If you read Reddit and HLTV, you'd think we're all still 12. But I'm pretty sure the majority of the gamer base is getting into their 20s, like at this point, and should have the money to spend on things that are high quality, like better
Yeah,
broadcasts, good journalism. But no one will, at least for now. It's been given away for too many years and they take it for granted. Plus, models for pricing are always complicated when you do something so internationally. But
yeah.
that's, I think, a discussion for people who are far more economically minded. Uh, for now,
It's
all
a,
I can
it's
say is it's just difficult to make it really work online.
it is a huge risk also to go from providing a free product and making it paid for. And I think we might be at a point where we could sustain such an ecosystem. Like as you say, people are old enough where they can do this and they have the income to do this. It's just that nobody wants to be the first brand to
Yeah,
do it.
no one wants to take the risk. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I kind of get that as well. Like, as for like broadcasting and stuff, I'm quite happy that we don't have like monthly subscriptions or anything. I think if Blast decided that all of our events are now going to be behind a $5 paywall, um, most people probably would just skip the event because there are enough other games that you can watch for free. Um,
Yeah, that's the issue they currently
yeah,
have. There's other esports that no one will have monetized. There's other games on
yeah,
the same time. Like this morning, if you didn't want to watch Blast stream because it was $5 a month to watch Blast games in HD or whatever the fuck it ended up being,
yeah,
um, you could have watched Amcal absolutely spank Into the Breach 2-0. You
yeah,
could have watched. There's probably a bunch of other tier 2 games going on right now. Yeah, Sinners are playing Arc Red, and if you're really feeling like a feminist, there's Lotus FE versus Shimmer starting up in the North American Cash Cup. Bloody late start. Holy crap.
yeah.
Sucks to be them. Unless my match list hasn't refreshed properly, that seems a bit off. No, that's
That
live.
might
That's just bugged. I'm sure that shouldn't be starting now, considering the official list start time's 11 p.m. Um,
probably was postponed or something, and they
yeah,
just haven't.
that's a bug. But yeah, there are games to watch. Is the point?
Yeah,
And there's always other options. People might tune out. So maybe the option is like you start a website that is just explicitly we're starting this. You're going to get some shit free. Most of it's not going to be free. Like people
yeah,
do this all the time with Substacks. Like Substacks,
yeah. Richard
Richard
Lewis, Richard
Lewis,
Lewis does
Dorans,
exactly this. Yeah,
they both of them are $5 a month basically to get all the articles and the more fun ones in my eyes as well because Richard Lewis's political like podcast is very funny. It's mostly American politics and the comedy of it all. So yeah, I'd pay for that. I'm happy to pay for that. It's hilarious. But let's get into more Counter Strike topics now. Uh, Dust2
yep.
Sweden, rest in peace. Let's talk about this Blast World final. It's currently ongoing. We are watching the grand final unfolding. The pistol round just finished for Dust2. Another pistol for G2. But let's talk about some of the other teams. Everyone's well aware of what's happening in the grand final. But let's start at the
Yeah,
bottom of the team
if
that
you
should
want
have
to
been at the
watch it,
top.
if you want to watch along, just now the first pistol round of the third map happened. If you want to watch the VOD along, because if something crazy happens, I might go, whoa, and yeah, I might do that.
Okay, for those three people, now you know. But yes, as I said, starting at the bottom with a team who should have been on top. Na'Vi. What a what an event for them. They kind of prefaced it, with the Blade interview that comes out. He's talking about the right events to peak, essentially. Hang on, I need to find his exact words. But essentially, they lose to Astralis 2-0 in the opening game. 13-6, 13-6. And then FaZe in the lower bracket. I mean, they put up more of a fight. They take Inferno at least. But losing Mirage, which is just atypical for Na'Vi recently. They've been so good on Mirage. And then losing Ancient, which is, I think, more reasonable of a map for them to lose to FaZe. Yeah, they go down straight home. And I think the question has to be asked. The question I'm going to ask for you. Does this concern you going into the major? Seeing as we've kind of set up this idea of like, if we want this to be a Na'Vi era, they got to win this major. Like, this has to be the major they win. They lost Cologne this season despite making all the grand finals. They crash out here. How does this affect their major chances in your eyes?
I I think they're like a tad affected, but I don't think this is a huge issue for them, to be entirely honest. I think it's a little bit of an off time, obviously, but I don't think that it significantly impacts them. Um, I think a lot of what they've said has been like, we're not like we don't want to win too much or whatever.
Yeah, so the
And yeah,
exact headline quote, sorry, just to butt in, was
yeah, yeah.
if we win this one, it can be too much confidence for us.
It's
Uh,
complacency. Yeah,
so that's the idea. And I there's it's almost Blade himself being like, we need the major. We need the
yeah.
major. This one, he's saying it makes him it probably make them cocky, but I don't know. I'd want to win the event before the major, just or at least
You
not get shat on what has been my home map the entire season. Like losing Mirage twice back to back without looking very strong on it. I mean, sure, they are the team with the most tape on Mirage. Everyone knows, everyone's playing their style of Mirage as well. You see a lot of the util defaults going down the scene. When I'm watching low level demos, I'm seeing Navi's mid util. Like everyone's watching these demos, so there's nowhere to hide. But the fact that they haven't been able to overcome in these events has, on this event specifically, is a little bit concerning for me. But no, please continue. How do you see it, fully?
I think we're in the territory where we're starting to see like saving strats. The major is the next event. Well, it's the RMR, but yeah, it's next up.
Yep.
I'm not sure. I would assume some other teams are also doing the same, but like somebody who would be a bit more analytical than me could probably watch Navi's games and say that they're not running the same strats as before, like, or they are running the same strats, like they're running the exact same playbook. There's nothing new or whatever. Um, and like the best stuff might be, just coming later. You don't want to run it here. Other teams probably doing the same, but maybe not to the same degree. I would imagine G2 don't have strats. Like I would imagine, some of these teams might be like, let's try to push for this win. Especially FaZe are like one who were like, we need a trophy. Like there's no sense in us waiting for the major because we need, like, the sooner we can get a trophy, the better. Um, so them I could imagine they just went full up, all out on this event. Astralis, same sort of thing. They're sort of building up, and I think a lot of what they've said has also been like, it's going to be a slow growth for Astralis. We're not going to go straight in and win the major with this roster. So I think, yeah, I think it might just be an element of like the major is more important, and it's not. I don't. I'm not sure I believe what Blade is saying about like complacency. I think he's right, but I don't think that's something that should impact you in the way of like losing the event. Not on purpose. Like I'm not gonna say on purpose, but like ahead of saying that ahead of the event, I think that's
Old
kind of,
move, isn't it?
it's weird. It's really weird
Yeah.
because if you lost the event on purpose, that doesn't stop you getting complacent. You could just as well get complacent either way because it's yeah. I think it might just be the element of like this event wasn't too important to them. The major is the important one. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, it does feel like maybe it was overlooked. Maybe they
yeah,
do. They are literally saving strats. You might be right about that, but we'll never really know. And I'm sure we'll get. Eventually, we might get some insight from Blade. He does seem to be very open in these interviews, which he's also very willing to give. Uh, but for now, we can just say not a great look in terms of their Mirage play. But maybe this is a sign of them. Yeah, if they're holding hiding strats, maybe they are switching their map they're going to go to in the future. They might in this following boot camp. I've always said this. Mirage Dust2 are maps I don't like you picking as a favorite. They're also maps I don't want to go to in a BO1, for example, in an RMR. Maybe it's just about them prepping these more complex maps. Maybe it's them deciding Vertigo, Nuke. Maybe they're going to decide to be more of an ancient focus team. Maybe there's something changing up there to the map pool to try and just adjust to the incoming horde of lower level rosters they're going to have to battle through. Like there's a lot of these teams. Maybe you don't want to give them a puncher's chance by letting them get you onto a map like Mirage.
yeah, and also like having a big veto advantage to be like, I don't know what they permaban. I can't remember. Is it Vertigo?
I feel like it is currently. I never see it
It
in the
prob
series.
Yeah, it's Vertigo. What if they just pull out Vertigo in the major playoffs? Whatever.
Always an option. Yeah.
Oh, it's something that I would kind of expect a team like Alexa B and Blade combo to pull that out in like the
Mm.
most winnable game. They just go like completely throw the other team off by picking their permaban for the first time in months or whatever. Um, yeah, we'll see what happens. it's an off event. Like they didn't play particularly well.
No, and the individuals, like, it was Bit had himself a good statistical game, and then JL Wonderful. I mean, it's the first time in a long time I've had to say this about Wonderful. Wonderful had an abysmal event.
Yeah,
He's been this season outstanding. Like, he, for me, in this season was starting to separate himself, truly away from the Torgies, the Brokies, because those teams weren't
yeah.
having the success. He's playing far more grand finals. He's playing very well, and I'm like, yeah, he's maybe finally establishing himself in that tier above. But this was a regression event, hopefully for him and for Navi. It's just a one-off blip. But let's talk about
I'm
another team.
yeah, I'm just very curious. Do you think Navi took a holiday, went to this event, and then are gonna like boot camp hard before the RMR, or do you think they boot camped, played the event, then they take some time off and go straight into the RMR, well rested? Because I would hope it's the former. If it's the latter,
Yeah.
then they're fucked. But yeah,
To be honest, if they were trying to do the latter, they have just received a bit of a holiday. Like, they went straight home
yeah,
in terms of they crashed out the event. Their flights are probably booked for Sunday or Monday.
yeah,
Just
chilling
chill
in
out.
Singapore.
Singapore
Yeah,
beautiful. Like, have you? If I know, I've been to Singapore. I'm not sure you have. Um, it's stunning. Very fun. Very safe city as well. Lots to see and do, and food to eat because it's next to Malaysia, and you get all the good Malaysian food.
mm,
So no,
good
I
stuff.
definitely just enjoy that as a good holiday. So yeah,
Yeah,
let's talk about another team. There's a lot of teams who need addressing here. I think Vitality is an interesting one
hmm,
because coming into this event, in the previews, even in last week's show, I believe, I didn't seem overly aware of Jax being present as a stand-in for Mezzi. Turns out
no,
they'd announced that like 3 or so weeks, maybe 4 weeks ahead of this event. So that's why I think it slipped a lot of people's minds, especially myself. Uh, but the fact that they actually come into this event, lose 2-0 to Spirit, and you think, okay, this is going to be a bit of a throwaway. But they beat Liquid, they beat Mouse, and then they at least take a map off G2. It wasn't too close on Mirage when you actually watched it. It was a fake comeback, and that fake comeback got them to 8 rounds. Like, not exactly much going on there. But overall, I think a surprisingly good event for Vitality despite everything. Despite not having their go-to Mezzi, their anchor, having to play with Jax, who wasn't crazy good. Like, he played fine. There were some maps where I thought he hit some good shots, some nice entries, but he overall didn't have the greatest amount of impact. I just think it was cool to see, like, that Mouse series, especially huge numbers from Spinks, really activating, and FlameZ continuing to show that he is a very underrated rifler. Vitality, again, we're going to phrase all our questions here. I think, especially about the top favorites relative to the major coming up. How well poised do you think they are? Because I have them in the tiers up alongside Navi as like the next couple events. These are the teams I expect to be on top. The fact that neither one of them even makes the grand final makes me look like an idiot, but I'm not too concerned because we turn our attention to the big one, the major. Do you like Vitality's odds? Or are they going to be a bit of a disappointment again for the French fans?
I think it really depends on in what state Messi comes back, because he's had some time off. The reason why a lot of people forgot about this and why it was announced so early is because he's gone, because he's become a dad. Um, and as much as like the fatherhood buff is a bit of a meme, because we've had a few of these before. Like Rain went away and then came back and was a beast in the Antwerp Major, I think it was. Just for that whole spring season, he was kind of nuts just immediately after having a child. Um, anyway, it's I think it depends on in what form Messi comes back, to be honest. Because if he has taken this holiday to like reset a bit, comes back, he's like hungry for it, straight into the major. He's got a lot to play for. Like, um, then I think they could still have a good time. I have a hard time putting them. I still have a hard time putting them above Navi, to be honest.
Sure.
Any even G2, it's like they absolutely could. But yeah, yeah, I do have a hard time putting them. Honestly, yeah, within touching distance of that win. But we'll see. It will. I absolutely think they're gonna go 3-0 in the RMR. I can't remember who they're. Well, yeah, they're probably top seeded or top 2 seeded. Um,
Comfortably, yeah.
yeah, they should go 3-0 straight into. It's still gonna be straight into Legends because yeah, or whatever the fuck it's called now.
Elimination stage.
Ah,
It's opening elimination legends, isn't it? Something like that?
I would have said it was open challenger, but no, that's the old system. Anyway, whatever. Um,
It's a
what
mess.
It's a fucking mess, and we're gonna have 3 of those next year. Ugh. All right. Uh, anyway, I think they're fine. What do you think about Jax so far? Like, because for him, this is like a big individual thing.
For him, it's an advert, it's a showcase, because
Yeah.
he thinks he's got a couple more years in him. I don't disagree. I just think he has to be on the right project because I watched him. Like, I want to say it's so easy. Jax, look how he plays in Tier 1 on a real team and plays with the roster. I just want to make sure I'm not talking about my ass about which roster he was on before. But yeah, when he was on the TSM
Project G.
rebuild,
Oh, yeah.
he was fucking mid. Like, he stepped down to Tier 2 competition and stepped down to Tier 2 competition. Like, he played to that level. He was incredibly underwhelming. And it's been a bit of an issue with Jax that he can't separate himself in Tier 2 really from the crowd to help that sort of level of roster come up into Tier 1 and play LANs. When he is at LAN with a real team, you realize he can play a role on a roster at this level. He just can't bring a roster to it. So maybe if there's a future where that's an option for him to join a team fully, that's already in the lower levels of Tier 1, that might be an option for him. But I think he's gonna age gracefully out of the scene. He's gonna play some more Tier 2, maybe potentially even go to play some like Tier 3, Tier 2 French Counter-Strike. We'll see what comes of it. And occasionally just be a hero stand-in. If a team needs a player at a LAN event, especially an English-speaking event, an English-speaking team, even, it seems his French has gotten a lot better since the last time I heard him speak English. His English got a lot better since I last heard him speak English. Sorry, his French is perfect.
It
So
would be.
maybe he is going to be just a hero stand-in until he decides, oh, time to hang up the mouse, become, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's going to be, but do whatever he wants. Maybe a content creator, maybe a coach, maybe just another guy.
Yeah, I think he's got a place. He's had really good stats. But yeah,
That's
good job.
the Jack stand-in story. He's just a
Yeah,
good stand-in every time he does it. But all right, G2 are in the grand final. Let's talk about this. Because I am famously not a G2 fan. In terms of the roster they currently have, certain individuals they've signed. This is often a misconception because, to be honest, I still have my G2 jersey. I'm still a big Malbs MD fan. He's one of my oldest prospects who have actually made that leap recently, which has been awesome, I'm going to be honest, especially seeing as he is so critical to the G2 success. Now, I do maintain that I disagree with the Snacks move. I still don't personally agree with it. I still believe that if you brought Malbs MD in to the Hoaxy version of the team, they would be doing everything they're doing now. I do not follow the line that says this is Snacks adjacent. Nothing to do with him in my eyes. The overwhelming firepower on this roster, plus some slow improvements to the overall game plan. Like, I watched that Mirage game intensely, and their opening rounds on the T side, like rounds 1 through 4 or 5, was so well planned out and executed. I was like, okay, the coaching is getting better. That's improving. Like, it wasn't their first. It was their first gun rounds I'm talking about, because they did lose pistol and the follow up. But then after that, yeah, they won 4 straight, I believe. And it took Donk hitting a quad kill with a Deagle for them to actually finally get stopped. But they were calling so well and executing very effectively into mid, which is something they've struggled with in the past under this sort of leadership. Like, I always bring this up because it's the most horrifying example. They were a team picking Inferno and not throwing the proper CTB smoke on their T-side XX.
I do that.
Yeah, right? Like, the most basic thing. So I was rather frustrated with certain things, but it is getting better. And when you have Monacy, Malbs, and Nico, and I actually have a lot of numbers to talk about in terms of this team and their firepower, because it looks great when you just look at the HLTV numbers. We have some deeper stats that I'm going to get into later. Just ridiculous. So, yeah, despite having Snacks putting up the most IGL of IGL numbers most weeks, they do have a lot of firepower, often gets undervalued. So no. G2, I think at this point, not even a dark horse to win a major. If they can make it through the RMRs cleanly, We have some history of them and the Armars, the Swiss stages later on. They might have some issues. If they can make playoffs, they might be outright favorites in Shanghai. Just given the last of what we've seen from Navi and the fact that I still think, firepower wise, G2s are the more stacked roster, they could just be outright amongst the favorites.
They could be. It depends on how this Navi thing shakes out, to be honest. But yeah, they are, as we speak, steamrolling Spirit. Spirit just now took their first 2 rounds out of the past 15. Like it's 6-2 up on for G2 on Dust2, and they swept the Anubis CT side.
Hold on. Spirit don't have a T side round yet. They don't have a T side round.
Oh, you're right. Holy shit.
So
0 T side rounds.
What are we calling for Chopper's head? Is it is it time finally the witch hunt can start? Who's a random Russian we can put in there?
Jerry.
Yeah, just stick Jerry in there. See if that works.
Yeah. It's gonna be fucking Nafany or something, right? It's gonna be that.
No, they're not gonna make a change. Don't worry.
I think Shiro liked Nafany. I think he liked him.
I doubt it. Right. Anyway.
I remember when Dust2 was Chopper's backyard. I remember that. I made a hilarious joke once about I found a book called like the spirit, like the book of spirit in a bookstore, and I was like, oh, it's a Dust2 strat book, and this would have been around 2021. Anyway, yeah, G2 are kind of legit, to be honest, but it's not snacks. Really weird. I guess maybe this is the Nico leaving honeymoon, which we got even more confirmed, and somehow yet still not confirmed this week. But we'll talk about that later. I put it in the shuffle.
Yeah, just for now, in terms of the way they're playing Counter-Strike, like it is fairly impressive that they are able to just get so much out of these players. Like they are insanely talented players, but it took them a little while to actually start. I think just playing good CS together rather than just playing off the individuals. Yeah, and yeah. We even now have Hunter, the third different player to top the score charts. I think because Mirage it was Munacy, Anubis it was Nico, and oh my god, if you watched that fucking game, Nico, bonkers. But now it's Hunter topping the score charts on Dust2. So yeah, so many options, and it's typically not even Hunter who's one of them. He's been kind of meh this event. The other 3 have been nuts. He's now finally finding some form. So yeah, scary team to play against. Finally, the only final team I want to talk about quickly, because Spirit, it feels like the same old tale in a lot of ways. You know, mental collapse in the final game. The game they're going to get eliminated. They don't always get eliminated in the grand final.
Yeah.
But Astralis make playoffs, and there's an uncanny feeling. You know, the uncanny valley of just like, not this again, because we had this for a while with Device as the IGL, where they have an insane like win rate. I'm talking when they had Device in the IGL spot, their round win percentage was in the 60s, just because of how dominant they were in groups. Then as soon as they hit playoffs, disappeared off the face of the earth. So it does feel rather similar. And the maps they lost against Spirit, they got annihilated. Now, to be fair, they did the same back to Spirit on Vertigo. But I'm not really too happy if I'm an Astralis fan, just based on the trends I've seen this year. Yabi and Stown, monsters in the groups. Complete duds in the playoffs. And honestly, Device, so far we don't have that much of him off the IGL role as an AWPer, but he's hit the same sort of trend as well here. So how much of a believer are you in Astralis? Do you think they have that level this year? Do you think they'll ever hit that real level?
Next year, maybe. I think it's... I wasn't particularly hype on this move. I think it's going to come down to personal issues, dynamics, whatever, which eventually becomes the downfall of this team. But I do think if they can prevent that, I think they're going to be kind of legit next year. But I do believe Kaden when he says that this is going to be a slow progress. It's not just going to be plug and play and then make it work. But yeah, I mean, a group stage is, you know, they still played Navi and Mouse. That's good
Yeah, they
scalps, but
beat two big teams.
yeah. So that's legit. They take a map of Spirit, a very dominant map, which might not be as impressive as this final now progresses. And G2 are back to winning ways 7-3 at the moment. Yeah, I'm not a believer right now. I think maybe next year.
Yeah, honestly, I have to say this. I am a bit worried if I'm the rest of the scene, because eventually Yabby's down, Device, the trio clicks on the big stage. I don't think it's a permanent thing. And the fact that they've so consistently now been able to just rip teams to shreds in group stages, I think this team actually could hit an incredible ceiling that we maybe aren't truly anticipating. Like, it doesn't seem everyone's concerned enough about this team's ceiling. I think it's very high. And they, maybe not the major, but maybe next year at some point they're going to hit it. And they're going to win some events. And I think a few events on the trot.
Yep.
So a worrying sign that even with Acadian as their IGL, they're able to recreate that sort of form. So yeah, that's the Astralis story. Same old story, but even more threatening now than they were before.
Indeed.
Right. That wraps up our Blast World final. We'll still have the game on in the background. Anyone else who is playing catch up, because this show's going to come out way after the final's over. Any North Americans, probably. Howdy. Have fun voting. I'm sure that's a very uncontroversial time amongst you and your family. Anyway.
That's in 2 days, right?
The
Tuesday.
final, everything will be finished in 2 days, and in the voting. Some have
That's
already
when
started.
most people vote. Yeah.
I
think what I've learned is that the mail-in votes, like, they lean Democrat, so like you can't really read anything out of it other than how much the Democrats are leading in that.
We're not talking about anything of anything right now at all. That was just an offhand comment. We're not going to talk about American fucking politics in its entirety.
For once, I'm interested in American politics, and I can't talk about it. Fuck.
No. Come back on the Retake the Week political edition on Kingt Politics. New channel starting tomorrow.
Retake the election.
Retake the election. Yeah, retake the cap. Anyway,
that could be a Trump slogan.
That could be it. But yeah, that's all right. Small site retake. You've got a little detail, a little crumb you want to talk about, something to bring up. Wow, we spent a lot of time on.
We have spent a lot of fucking time. I'm gonna be quick.
Go.
Yesterday I was at a LAN tournament. You can see some pictures on my Twitter because I brought my camera, and I thought I was going to do it for. I wasn't there to cover the event. I was there for fun, but I thought that it would be nice to have pics of some Swedish players because some of these guys are decent. They might like show up in future. They might show up in like proper teams. So it would be cool to have pictures of them in that case. And also just like it's fun for them, like to have some pics to show for like promo or profile pics or whatever. So I figured I could hone my skills and try my hand at it. And it was really, really, really fun. And I just want to say, anybody who is fortunate enough to have like LAN events being hosted, whether it's like Biok or with a tournament or whatever, you should go. It was a really fucking fun time because this is a very small town, which was over a 2 hours drive from where I live. And I went with a friend, and we just had a baller of a time. I knew some of the guys who were there, some of the industry people. I got to meet Precy. They were lovely. They also eventually won the event, 2-1 in the final. Snapped some pictures, sent it to Dust2, the Danish Dust2, and they could put them on the articles. And everybody was really appreciative of the pictures and everything. But that's the point, because honestly, it was just really good fun, and everybody was really nice, and you could just like meet really cool people who like are really into this, like into making a local event, because it's just a guy from this small town who's like, I want to do something for the community, which is somewhat in my sphere. And for 3 or 4 years now, he has been running this, which is it's a very small DreamHack. It's a DreamHack which fits in a like a handball stadium, like in a regular old gymnasium.
Yeah.
And they have like 40 or 50 Biok seats, and then in the other hall they have like 10 spots for teams to like play, and like a small stage set up in front of one of the things. Wasn't a big crowd. I think when I was there at any time, it was like at most 15 people watching the game. But they had a broadcast, and they had like an analysis from like an actual couch, like sitting there watching. They had you could walk around among the teams. Like it felt a bit like NA, like when you see pics from like Fragadelphia and stuff, where you can like walk around the teams as they're playing, and you'd like
Yeah.
watch them actually sit there. I took some really cool pics of that as well. But yeah, if you have the opportunity to go to one of those, it might be free. The Biox seats might be like $200 or $20. I mean, the team spots even they might be like $200, and if you split that 5 ways, um, that's a fun ass trip. If you're honestly dog shit at CS and you just want to come and play a group stage, that's gonna be. We almost did that because a friend of mine had a spot which he had to forfeit because they couldn't go, and we almost did that, but I had an exam on day one, so we couldn't have done it. But that would have been really fun. But yeah, it was a really fun time, and you should all go. And if you were at the event, or if you just want to see some cool pictures, on my Twitter, and it's going to be on Instagram and everything, and you can just use them for whatever, but please credit me.
Cool, yeah. Nice little event. I mean, I never really look into anything hosted in London because I know London's just a expensive place to do shit, so most fun shit for esports doesn't really happen here. Like, we have the Face It Major London, which was garbage. We have the Blast Spring Final this year, which was pretty cool. But I'm sure if I looked around places like Nottingham, where are Endpoint based now, Sheffield, these smaller cities in the UK where it's cheaper to get space to do stuff. I mean, there probably is some places like in the suburbs of London that are an option. But I'll look into it for my scenes as well, because I'll be curious to see what's going on.
There's two I hear about all the time, and one of them is Insomnia, and then the
That's
other
huge,
one
though.
is yeah, but they have like a CS tournament there, which is smaller.
Yeah, they do have a small CS tournament. Yeah.
I imagine it would be the same kind of vibe, like nice vibe. You can just like walk up to the players and just be like, "Hey, what's going on?" What is the other one? Which is like happening soon-ish or has already happened. I'm gonna have to check Twitter for this. I can't remember
because
what it
I'm
was
not
called.
that up to date on the British scene. I'm too busy sat in my little room watching demos.
I will find it in just a second. I know somebody who tweeted about it earlier today. Epic LAN.
Oh, Epic LAN, yes.
Yeah. It probably is bigger. Like, it probably is bigger, but I would still call that a small local LAN just because of the competition who are there.
Yes. The UK CS teams are not big deal teams. There's no prezies in attendance. There might be an Endpoint, which is always cool. But in terms of the big names, it may be Endpoint, Verdant, these sorts of the level of team that'll attend. And the fact that I'm sure most people who watch Tier 1 CS have never heard of Verdant proves my point entirely. But all right. No, local LANs are cool. Attend them if you can. Right, I have a bit of a larger small site retake, but I kind of want to talk about it somewhere, and I thought it made sense here. So I've been chatting to someone who DM'd me after we had Nero on the show, talking about things that are possible with stats. Essentially, I mean, his opening line was that his stats are better. Let's see about that. But I went through some of his sheets. I started asking him some questions because you know how people are when you make your own spreadsheet. Right, you don't feel the need to explain everything in great descriptive detail. So I was like, what on earth does half this shit mean? And after having a chat, we had a call. He starts talking about how he's doing this, and it's actual demo passing. It's not, because HLTV, as we talked about with Nero, it's more of like essentially a score bot that they're getting data from. It's not the actual demos being passed. So we sat down, had some chats, looked through his stats. And then I've also been contributing, as in throwing some ideas out there. So there's a new stat on the latest spreadsheet, which is CT fragging only. But that's actually called the Kingt dynamic kills. And we'll get into all of that. But let's start with essentially the takeaways from his sheets. Just his own stats initially. Now, these are all CT side only. The latest sheet is only CT side. He has separate CT and T ones. And the T side has yet to be published, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, firstly, these are... the primary thing he's measuring is kill rates in 1 rounds, but also the types of kills players get. These are the two sorts of focuses. And what we can see in his sheets is Donk is the fragger of the year, and it's not really close. If you go through the sheet and see which players have a better like KPR in 1 rounds, but also actually win a lot of CT rounds, that stat that he pumps out, which he refers to as D times E, to get to someone with a higher rating, you have to scroll all the way down to tier 5, where you'll find some women's CS players. And if you go to the players who are untiered, you'll find a couple of Asian players who've barely played any maps this year, who have a better rate. He's also, in terms of kills in in the last 3 kills of a round, to close rounds, he gets the most kills of almost anyone in every single situation. Hard kills, fair duels, positional advantage fights, trades, everything is donk. He's just donking like crazy. Uh, he's an absolute monster, whilst also having very high sacrifice stats. So he is an entry player, born and true. He's just also able to rack up frag after frag after frag. So that's pretty much confirming, I think, what we've all seen, but also cool to have a stat that directly points at it. Gimpfat is perhaps the best player in the clutch. Obviously this year, but one of the best we've ever witnessed. When the team have 1 or 2 players alive, he is just the best fragger in tier 1 at least, potentially all the way through the scene. It's absurd. Be it a fair duel, an advantage duel, a trade, he leads tier 1, or is tied at least, for the most kills in those scenarios, whilst also having the most clutches. Just outright. The only player close to him in the top tier is Shiro. Now, we all know Shiro's a volume clutch player. So is Yimfat, and even to a higher degree. So those are some of the cool stats. But now let's get into this dynamic frag. So essentially, to register for what we've termed a dynamic kill, it's a player killing 2 players in under a second, whilst having to adjust at least 10 degrees to make it happen. So these are the kills that are very improbable. And I've gone through, we've pumped out playlists of these rounds. I've gone through the rounds. 97 to 98% of the cases, it's actually just straight up. Had to kill that guy within, that sort of time frame. There is a few occasions, just a very limited few, where a player's just sneaks through a smoke and has 2 players in front of him and technically adjusts 10 degrees to shoot them both in the back of the head. You're like, yeah, that's obviously a bit of a blip. But for the most part, these are clean, high impact, kind of system breaking, game-changing plays you have no right making. And for a start, of the best dynamic fraggers in tier 1, the top 10, 3 of them play for G2. 3 of them play for G2. Malbs, Hunter, and Nico. All of whom have some of the highest rates of just hitting these insane highlight multi-kills that flip rounds on their heads. It's actually very impressive that they've managed to do this. Of course, the top of tier 1 is Donk, but then right beneath him is Flamesy, a player I've said he's getting underrated, and we're showing this here. This is insane. I'm pretty sure these stats are actually both T and CT sided, just for an asterisk on that. But Flamesy doesn't get the credit he deserves. I'm sure if we split this T and CT side, it'd mostly be T side fragging, because that's how he's been this year. Absolutely insane. Very underrated player for the output and the difficulty of shot he's hitting. Really deserves it. AWPers obviously have a low rate of this, because having an AWP out, it's almost impossible to get 2 kills in under a second. If there's 2 people on your screen close enough, you're dead, basically. You might get 1. But the 2 leaders are, unsurprisingly, m0NESY, ZywOo. And they are comfortably ahead. Brokey then kind of makes a case, but he's not close to them. I'd assume a lot of it is because of how good these 2 are on rifles. But also just, we've seen the speed with which m0NESY can hit a double kill, right? He might be just about the only player who can do it with an AWP as well, with any consistency. Right, yeah, that's those guys. And I think the use of this sort of thing is to find, I just think, especially with the dynamic frags, things like that, these sorts of scenarios where we hadn't really thought about it, but the quality of kills is often overlooked. So I think that's why EDR focuses so much on kills in 1 rounds, doesn't really give a shit about people fragging lost rounds. It's something we've gone back and forth on, about finding the right balance of that. But for now, this is the way he's representing these numbers. And I do think it's very interesting. So take a look if you have some time. Keep in mind that the tiers that have been assigned, you'll find it on my Twitter, I retweeted it last night. The tiers he assigns to teams, I don't know what he does it based on, because they do seem a bit all over the shop. So just when you look at a player, don't immediately get lost in the numbers, because it might be against Australian competition, FlyQuest. No, I don't think you have 3 of the best fraggers in all of tier 2. That's a very generous ascribing of tier, let's put it that way, because a lot of their games are in Australia, and they're not that good players. No offense, Vexite, Ince, and Dexter. But no, it's interesting to look through. especially some of the deeper teams where you're thinking, oh, I've never heard of this player, but they do a lot of dynamic fragging. That stuff's cool. And if you want to take a look, yeah, as I said, I've quote tweeted it. He was recently on KRL stream, because EDR is French, speaks French, so there's a very extensive conversation about stats on KRL stream with EDR. So if you want more insight from him and you understand French being spoken at 1,000 miles an hour, you know where to go. Because even I had struggles sometimes. I was like, hold on. I can't be dealing with four of you talking at once in full French. Like, that's just too much. Take a chill pill. But no, Quack, have you had a chance to take a look at some of these numbers? I know I sent you some screenshots yesterday, but you
No,
taken any
I have
deeper
not.
looks?
I was drunk, but I will look at them because this sounds extremely exciting. This sounds this sounds like the kind of stuff that I would have wanted to do if I had the time, and
Yeah.
because I've been on the edge of this for so many times. This sounds like a dream.
Yeah, definitely take a look. I mean, there's in terms of for profiling players, it's useful, but also I think for getting some insight into the fragging, it's great. And no surprises if you look through it. The fair duels, which are considered to be when two players essentially both looking at each other, have a chance to shoot, fair duel. The highest win rate is obviously Orpers. Shocker. And then you just got Zentaris and Immer and Nico, just like, yo, excuse me. The best aimers in the world here, and Immer, which I'm sure a lot of people did not have probably in mind for that sort of title. These guys just straight up, head to head, win at a rate only Orpers typically do. So, also a pretty cool little insight there.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Small
Yeah,
tangent. Spirit have
not
finally won T-side rounds, but they're
yes,
probably losing this map anyway.
yes, they have. They're down 11-6 now. But yeah, that's my small site retake. Not so small in my eyes, but I'm sure EDR and I are going to keep going back and forward. And I think the numbers are going to keep evolving, factoring more things in. Probably, I think at the end of this, I do want to help develop a one number rating that can actually be viable in terms of, I guess I could call it like a frag quality rating. I think that'd be an interesting thing to develop.
Yeah.
Just based on difficulty, positioning of crosshairs, all this different stuff. So yeah, keep an eye out on that space. Follow him if you want to see all of his very detailed number sheets. I will keep promoting them because I think it's interesting. Another way to look at the numbers in Counter-Strike. But all right, the Eternal Shuffle. It's been, well, it's never stopping, is it? It's never going to end. Just like, well, no, everything ends, isn't it? That's part of the horrifying reality of life we all have to deal with. But the Eternal Shuffle knows no bounds. Let's begin.
It never stops. It never ends.
With BC Game, a team you didn't think you'd ever hear about again, but apparently you are, because for some reason, Jacob has joined them. They've removed Quirts, added Jacob. I don't really get why Jacob's moved here, because unless there are wholesale changes coming in the pipeline, this is not a team worthy of Jacob. Maybe they've offered him 50k a month, but otherwise, I don't get why this move has happened. Do you?
They have probably offered him 50k a month. I think they've offered him a salary which he can live on, and rather than wait a bit, I don't know if anybody else is offering that right now. I think honestly, out of the teams who are not locked by the RMR, BC Game probably pay the most. And to be honest, they do have some half decent pieces. Like, I think he sees the potential here in the players. And I think maybe he is an upgrade. Like, in a sense, he is.
He is an upgrade, but the problem
Yeah.
is, I've seen this roster play, man.
Yeah, but I mean,
post Joel and all the bullshit that happened.
he's played with
Not
Satsanito
good.
before. I think that's a component people are forgetting. He's played with Satsanito fairly recently. He's got Guardian, which I think he's not gonna stay there in the op spot. They probably want to get a better opper, but he probably wants to do something with Guardian. I would imagine a lot of players would. He's got Lekro, half decent, and I've heard a lot of good stuff about Prime Taps. Prime Taps has impressed a lot of people, I think. So I think he sees like the piece by piece potential plus a big salary on that, compared to something like if he were to go to OG for a small whatever, like a smaller salary, and he plays with some honestly worse players piece by piece. I think I think he's done a good job. It's either this or wait until after the major. And to be honest, I think he realizes that he's going to be forgotten about at that point. Because who's going to pick up Jacob in January?
A lot of teams, because there's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be a lot of gaps to fill. I'm telling you that now.
Yeah, but Jacob, like you have so many other riflers you could go for, who aren't 31.
Who aren't 31, but I also don't have a lot of other options in terms of riflers who have seemingly endlessly put up a 1.15 rating on LAN, no matter the team, no matter the concert, like no matter the context, no matter what, you can get a 1.15 out of Jacob. That's a guarantee. Like it seems ridiculous to say, but with unpaid, when they were post bleed and they went to LAN, he was again amazing. Like it never stops. So I don't think he was right to jump to a move. Maybe it's a temporary signing. Maybe there is like just a 3-month contract, like a very reasonable buyout written in post major, potentially something like that. But I don't see the potential that he allegedly does in your eyes. Let's just put it that way. That's not really a good move for me.
Mm.
Saw have added Golden. Now, after Berry leaves, Aros leaves, some intimated issues in some tweets, I want to say, but there was nothing really ever talked about. We do finally have their replacement coach come in after signing Agil for their rifle spot, and that's Saw. Fucking hell, that's Golden, who has, I don't know, in my eyes, like his tenure recently has been up and down. Like, it's been all over the shop. Like, I'm not sure what to make of certain rosters he's been a part of, especially his involvement and what he's brought to the table. So I don't really know if I want to say this is a particularly great move for either party. I just think it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. Because again, Saw, Portuguese team, not a Portuguese coach. They're going again for a former IGL, a coach of other teams. I guess putting that bet on a player with a lot of tactical nous, a lot of tactical rep, I guess is the way they're going for it.
Yeah, and I think they've done a good job here. It's a short-term contract. He is going to be there until after the major, and then they're going to renegotiate and reevaluate, see if they want to keep him or not. He's already worked with the team. He's going to go to Shanghai. He's going to work with the team. He's not going to be able to stand behind them because Barry is still officially the coach. He has worked with the team. He worked extensively with them for Katowice. Roman said a lot of good stuff about like the prep that he had helped them get where they won. They won the event. I think they've done a good job. I think Golden, honestly, at this point, is fit for a coach role. I think he's extremely competent tactically. I think I think he has like a personality which really fits for like an IGL and also a coach. Like I think he can have a lot of positive influence on a lot of different on his teammates. I think he always has had that in all of his different teams. So I think he's picked. I think it's a good pick. I think it's a very good pickup for Saw as an interim coach. And honestly, yeah, out of the ones available right now, it might be the best pickup. I think the only way I could see I can't think of anybody else who's available who would have been better off with this team right now. So at least for the major, that's a very good pickup, I think.
Yeah, we'll see what he can bring to the table. We know he's an adept tactician, so as a coach, he gets to bring a lot of that strategy gets to be prepped and baked in. But he also gets a lot of influence just because the shorter game, timeouts have remained the same. You do get more say over the way your team adjusts to their opponent. So, having a great tactician in the coach role is critical right now. It is why people have been critical of moves like Taz coming into G2. Like, we have no real reason to see him as a up to date on the current meta elite tactician for the scene. So they've gone the very opposite. A player who has not got that great history, reputation. He's playing eyeballers as an absolute bot, to be real. But we know he knows his things when it comes to strategy. And yeah, we'll see how it works out for them. Bit of a fresh, shaken up roster. Revenant have officially let MBK go find his another option, another team. He's kind of benched. I'm not sure if he's officially benched or is just allowed to be loose.
A restricted free agent is the way
Right.
you put it, which is a term I've heard before.
In other sports, it makes sense,
G2
but
just won, by the way.
okay,
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah. I I think it just means he is allowed to explore other options, but like I don't know. I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, what's weird is that in like a basketball context, if I'm not mistaken, restricted free agent typically means you're allowed to go talk to other teams and get offers, but then your team has the right to match the offers and just keep you.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that's actually what they're talking about here. That'd be a bit weird. But Revenant, it's a bit odd the situation they found themselves in. I still think they have two of the more talented tier 2 players, just in general, in Nivera and Reiko. They just they've been cutting players. Adex gone, now MBK officially gone as well.
I think this wasn't. NBK wrote in his article that we are allowed to explore options as restricted free agents. So I think it might just be the whole roster, which is like allowed to go do other shit. But yeah,
I've not paid particularly much attention to the other players' Twitter feeds, but I've not really seen the
no,
same.
nobody else posted anything. Nivera and Raiko and Lonix, they posted basically nothing since like
Yeah.
joining the team. So yeah,
So no, it's a bit of an awkward situation for us talking about Revenant. I still think they have, yeah, that's what I said, just two uber talented players just waiting to be unleashed or waiting to be used in a better roster, I guess. Anyone who's curious to hear some thoughts from Pakish, their former coach and GM, I think he's now just GM. There is an interview on my channel. It's a couple months old now, but it's it's before they cut Adex, but technically that process took really long. So it's a bit, yeah. He's already being benched essentially and replaced by Tizian at that point. So see what he has to say on that video. But I'm just concerned for these players. They still have futures. Finally,
yeah,
G2 CEO has confirmed minus Nico,
yeah.
essentially.
It's
Yeah.
it's like the third time we get confirmation of this, and yet it is still not fully confirmed. Because nothing has been announced. He basically, everybody saw this headline. I just put this in as a footnote because it's a small development in probably what is going to be one of the most exciting transfers in Counter-Strike history. So,
Mm.
um, it's basically he said in some interview he was asked about Nico, like why didn't you keep Nico? Why are you letting Nico go? And he basically said if we wanted to keep Nico, we could have, but we. And then he alluded to the fact that Mobs is going to slide into his roles and everything, and they are in the process of finding a replacement for basically Mobs's roles. And so yeah, I'm assuming that just means he's gone. In this moment right now he is lifting the last trophy, um, which is just funny. Like it's very strange. And I think there's going to be some very interesting interviews in 6 or 8 months time where people look back on it and look at like, wow, you actually kind of hit a good streak with G2, but you'd already decided to leave. What's going on? And it's going to be some interesting insight there, I think. But yeah, that's just a footnote.
And what he'll say is, I can't coincidentally, arbitrarily decide to no longer go form the dream team, super team I've been trying to make for 10 years, just because Hunter decided to have some good events and m0NESY turned into a god. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long that's realistically going to last. I'd rather bet on Simple. Well, I'm not sure Simple was actually part of the equation at that point. But there is conversations I've heard of. There's the option to like fully rebuild the roster around Nico and Simple now, like as
Yep.
in being presented to Nico and Simple. So there might be more changes coming than we expect. Might be way more changes coming than we expect. So that's going to be very interesting. For now, though, G2, yes, take another trophy. Since signing Snacks, it's now two of them. With Snacks the IGL, sure, both Blast events. None of the Prestige events yet. Yet to make a Prestige event final. But they've only had one to try it. And now there's another one coming in the major. It's going to be weird for them, I think, in the post-Nico world. But I think if you keep... If for G2 themselves, if the team doesn't particularly change beyond minus Nico plus replacement Rifler, I do think your floor drops because of how much he brings to the table as a mid-round caller, a mind, and a fragger. Like his ability to be aiming in the right place is almost unparalleled. But I think there's a chance they can keep that ceiling because when Hunter shows up, Muncie already plays like one of the best players in the world, like just as in top two. Malbs on the T side is just a game breaking player. Like he has no right finding so many frags. So they have an incredible ceiling just waiting to be activated. We'll have to see who they end up bringing as their fifth. Honestly, even if they keep Snacks and Taz, you could probably say the same. It hasn't actually changed that much. So, yeah. Bonkers ceiling, still potentially there for G2. It just becomes a massive void to fill and probably a bit of an issue for their floor in terms of replacing Nico. Right. We got a fun segment we haven't done in a while. I haven't really had any inspiration to do it, but I did have some today. So I thought I'd challenge Quack to a question, to a problem, to a disease, a diagnosis. Here we go. Dr. Duck's diagnosis. He's got to figure out how to make something happen. Now, the diseased part of the scene, the thing that has been struggling with one hell of a virus, that virus being called shititis, is the French. The French kinda suck. Beyond, obviously, those two who sit on Vitality, kinda sucks. So,
some would argue.
And some would argue, yes, they do suck as well at the top sometimes. And yeah, we do see the occasional blip from both, honestly. But I want you to build an era-defining French roster. I'm talking pure French. No Swiss, no Belgian. I know there's no real options for them, but still, just in case you had that come to your mind, like, oh, I want Maniac. Nope.
You know how I feel about Kios.
Yeah, I know you're a Kios fan for some absurd reason. It's just a lack of taste, I think. Yeah, so build me a French era-defining roster. Current players, obviously. You can't pick 2014 Kenny S or anything stupid, or Prime Kaylee, cheats and all. None of that. I just want French players from right now. Build me an era-defining team. And of course, you're allowed to pick the Vitality too.
Okay, well, I am. I think that is a
obviously, yes,
obvious pick. One of the best players in the world, and one of the best in-game leaders in the world at the moment. So I think that is a no-brainer pick. Actually, another pick which I think is among some people, this would probably be considered controversial, but I think Misuta is one that I also have no problems putting in there.
Pause. Just right there. Misuta, statistically, in the EDR numbers, the sheets we were talking about earlier, it's not that crazy. But then you add the explosive factors in, bro, of players playing real Counter-Strike. He's like the best in terms of hitting those explosive kills. And we have an extra stat that only is on my sheets for now, that aren't public. Explosive singles, like big flicks you had to kill a shot, to kill a player. He's the best in the world as well. Pretty much, like, above Donk in terms of the rate at which he does it. Obviously, lower competition has to be factored in. But Masuta is bonkers just for making those crazy highlights happen right now.
Hell yeah. So I do think he has had a big upswing, and I think he was competent during his time in Vitality as well. I think he can fill a lot of different roles, and I think he's going to be for an era-defining team. I think Masuta is going to be there in 2024, and then I think is this like an era-defining team tomorrow, or is this one which is just at some point going to have an era? Is that what is the assignment here?
It kind of has to be pretty instant, but we have to magically assume, they play as a team. Like they don't just come in as random disparate players playing different systems of Counter-Strike. No. We'll give you like 6 months to ramp up into era defining. There you go.
I don't have Nero's thing in front of me, but I do think for my supportive spots I would have wanted Nate you.
Yeah.
I do think that would have been the move. And then for fifth, actually, that's a bit more difficult, to be honest, because now I feel like I've run out of good French players. So what am I realistically missing here? I do have like my bitch entry fragger IGL. I have my Opper, because I probably wouldn't put. There's an argument to put Zywo on the rifle and then take somebody like Maka, who actually is still pretty competent, but I don't think I want to do that, to be honest. Haji is not making it up there. I don't think I'd put Lucky either, and then I'm sort of out of good options here for like a a solid. I feel like I need a solid, sort of lurky rifler. I feel like that's what I'm missing. A little bit of a like a hunter or a Jimpat or somewhere along that range. Not exactly comparable, but yeah.
Hmm.
That's actually difficult. That's actually really difficult. Especially, I'm gonna have to drag my map cap down here. I'm thinking maybe Divi is a half decent option.
Orpa.
He is an opera, thank you. I did not know that. I am fucking out of options. Yeah, I am actually out of options. There's nobody decent left. It probably would honestly have to be Lucky if I'm looking at 2024. Yeah, I have a really hard time picking anybody else, to be honest. And that's not exactly an inspired pick. I'm not even sure if he fits there. I think he's a bit of a jack of all trades. I think he can definitely play those roles.
Lucky.
It's gonna be him or Haji, and I would honestly rather have Lucky.
I don't want that shit. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's him or Haji, and it's gonna be Lucky in that case. Because there's nobody like Exercise is not that good. I've never thought he was that good. And then we're down to like body, but at this point he's a very, very aggressive rifler. He would have been the Apex replacement. I guess maybe try NBK in those positions without IGLing. That would have been fun, but no. Yeah, I think that's gonna be where I end. I'm gonna end up on Lucky and ride on the experience. So yeah, we're gonna have Zaiwu, Apex, Misuta, Nateyu, and Lucky, and that's gonna be my thing. What do you think? Have I saved your
I,
nation?
I think you're pretty close, honestly. You're pretty close. I'm not. I
Yep.
don't think Lucky's my guy. I do actually think Exercice is my fifth in my version of the team because I need a hard anchor who has solid performances despite it, and he has been that guy of late. Like he actually has. Like the last sort of year or so. I mean, he was initially touted as like a future star player by some people
Yeah.
because of his aim when he was a younger player, but he never was that guy. Like just outright. But he is definitely a player who has some potential and plays these bitch spots quite well. I mean, him and what's his name, Gravity, both play decent role player position, like role player roles. But I like Exorcise for the anchor lurker sort of spot you need to close out.
Yeah.
I think this team will be very reliant on, I think, Nechu, I think Apex, and I think Zaiwu, because Misuta, I think, can play decently well at a high level. But as much as I hyped up parts of his game, I don't think he's going to be the part that makes it all work, you know?
Yeah.
I do think this is close. Like, this isn't too bad. Like, Apex is actually, again, kind of a low-key a fragger when it comes to making bonkers highlights happen. And you've got some very good pieces around him to work with.
Yeah.
Sure, no Spinks, no Flamesy on this team. I don't think there is. But it's a good attempt. And disappointingly, I don't think it gets much better for French Counter-Strike.
It will not have an era.
Probably not. But
No.
let's wrap up the show as we always do with the prospects of the week. It's been a not too long show this time. That's I guess a
What's that?
miracle.
An hour and a half? Is that what we're
We're
calling
we're
a not too
we're,
long show?
we're an hour and 15, hour and 20 roughly right
Yeah.
now. It'll be an hour and a half by the time we're done, I'm sure. And I'm going to lead off with Nilo, a Swede. Haha. My turn to pick Swede. But for real, this guy is the prospect from Sweden right now. Has been all year, despite Metasport trying their best to tank everything with the way they've been switching up entire systems, making roster moves, signing people I've never heard of. But they have done an okay job recovering, and they're now back up to a point where they can win a series in Tier 2 and Tier 3. And so Nilo has had that opportunity. Like, there's still other talents on this team, but I just want to highlight the talent of the talents, and that is Nilo. He is a rifler to be feared. I think coming into Tier 1, should he get that chance, think of him as Stown with better aim, honestly. It's kind of how I see him. he is he's a weapon. Let's put it that way on both sides of the map and in pretty much every scenario. So yeah, Nilo, solid week, but just generally one to watch for the future when it comes to Swedish CS. I don't think they have a better player than this on the way up. I don't care about anyone. Malo 9, I don't care. He's playing bums. He's still like 3 years old. It's all about Nilo.
Met his dad yesterday. He was a really good guy. Anyway, thumbs up. Yeah. No brainer. It's a broken record at this point. Nilo is the goat. The biggest hope we have of anybody being half decent at this game is probably him. And I do think Metasport, as much as they have at the very least slowed the downfall. They've had probably one or two the outright bad decisions, and then they've had a bunch of bad luck as well. So I do think they've started to slow that downfall, and we'll see how things develop. Lumen hasn't exactly impressed so far as the Opera. Shine as well is looking to be a little bit of a golden type, but he's shown that he's competent before.
Way to call him a bot in the most polite way possible.
He's been a bot. Well, impolite towards golden, I suppose. Yeah, he has been a bit of a bot, but yeah, they've beaten Ecstatic. They've beaten Fnatic not too long ago. Wow. They're winning some games that they should win. They're losing some games that they should lose. I think they have at the very least slowed the downfall and can hopefully start turning things around. And at that point, Nilo becomes a very interesting prospect for 2025. I thought it would be for 2024, but it's going to be for 2025.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Yeah, it's a shame about this year kind of being a wash for Metasport. There were times we were like, oh, then the Blast Showdown, oh, they could make the RMR or whatever, but it's just all kind of come crumbling.
Yep.
As a year, but there's still chances. And if this group stays together, I mean, Adam B still a talent. I was disappointed when they cut Susp, but still, there's ways for this team to work.
Yep. Oh my god, what a bad time to yawn. My pick for this week is a 9Pandas player who isn't Result. It's going to be Diletus, who has been in the past. He's very much been that guy for 9Pandas, and he had a little bit of a slowdown as Result came in. But this week he's really been back on it. He's had a positive rating in every single game they played. In every single map they played. They won all of them but one. Against 9, against Misuta, who is obviously the GOAT, as we've previously established in this show. Very, very good numbers in this series. Yeah, 9Pandas, dark horse for me to make it to the major. Dark horse for me to make it into the top 16, to be honest, because they've showed that they can be up here. They made roster moves that can definitely be upgrades or should be upgrades. But then they've sort of just taken this little bit of a downturn, just a little bit, and they keep being a little bit up and down in the online play. Once they get to the RMR, I think Delayed is going to show up big. I think Result's going to show up big, and I think we are going to have 9Pandas make it not straight into the top 16, but they are going to I think we're going to see 9Pandas play in the top 16 of this Shanghai major, and Delayed is going to be part of it, hopefully.
Yeah, Delidas is a player who I've highlighted in the past. Well, 9Pandas, essentially, they won a LAN of some variety or some event with him as the MVP, and he was insane. No, Delidas is a real fragger. He's a rifler who I'm a big fan of, and I thought it was a shame, initially when they signed Result, that he lost some of his sort of T-side go-to fights, like some of the brawls he likes to get involved with, to Result, who is a very aggressive T-side player. Essentially, the opening volume shifted off of his shoulders onto Result. But this run of form has come even with him playing trading, clutching spots, like that profile shift. He still managed to bring the firepower, and I'm glad. It was an adjustment period. There were some rough moments. And his level dipped. I mean, he was still playing like at a 1.1 sort of level, I think, if memory serves me. But now he's found a real fresh vein of form. 9Pandas are scary again. I mean, we thought they were going to be terrifying when Result joins. They kind of have, a bit of a slowdown. And at this point, I think, going into the RMRs, they are back in conversations as one of those super dangerous, full Russian teams who can definitely hang with a lot of teams that don't shouldn't really want to face them. Like, they're playing Astralis in the opener of RMRB. I'd be scared if I'm Astralis in a BO1. Like, that's just
Oh yeah.
a terrifying opponent to have to run into.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, these RMRs are going to be bonkers. Double swing episodes coming all week long and all next week. Like, we are packed in terms of our recording schedule. It's going to be nuts.
Sweet.
But all right, yeah, Nine Pandas had a good week. Dealer Des, a banger player, and that kind of wraps up our show. A tight hour 25. Not bad, not bad. Just in time for lunch. We love to see it. All right, if you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, leave a comment telling us why we're wrong. We appreciate the engagement. Sub for more. Show comes out every Sunday, except if we're both on holiday that one time. I mean, honestly, there have been times where we couldn't record on a Sunday, we record on a Friday, still put it out. So, yeah, we try our best. Please remember that if you want to support the show, the best way to do it is through becoming a member. Members get access to a bunch of extra content and the right to vote. So, pretty great. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.